Welcome to Storytime with Writer's Playground. Thanks so much for joining us. My name is Mariana Davila.
And I am Merrick Humbert.
And we are your hosts. We got an excellent story in store for you today. And we're getting down to crunch time for our current challenge, aren't we, Merrick?
That's right. We'll be announcing the winning stories from our 11th challenge a week from Saturday, so the pressure is on. We still have a few stories left to read and then some big decisions to make. And this is always an exciting time for us, but it's also quite nerve-wracking. We love the process of making our selections and then sharing some of the work that you all submitted. But we also know that there are a few hundred people that are about to be disappointed. And as writers, our work is very personal to us. And we've been on the other end of criticism before, so we know it can be a little tough to take sometimes. We always try our best with the feedback to be positive and encouraging, but we also pride ourselves in being honest about how a piece comes across, about what we feel didn't work, and what we feel could make it better. And our primary objective is that it is useful for you moving forward. Anyways, we are getting down to the wire. And since we will be announcing the winning stories before our next episode, our goal is to have the first place winning story recorded and ready to go for our next episode 2 weeks from today. And we don't even know what that is yet, so that's exciting as well. But tell us about the piece we will be sharing today, Mariana.
Yeah, I am looking forward to that as well. So thanks, Merrick. For today, Merrick will be reading a story called The Snow Shrine by George Cooksey, which won third place in our 7th Playground Challenge. George is an officer in the United States Air Force who likes to write in his spare time. He is a part of the Suggestion Mode writing group alongside lifelong friends and fellow writers Miguel Flores and Sammy Tini, and their work can be found on their blog, suggestionmode.com. That will be in the description below wherever you are listening to this, and we would encourage you to check that out. The story that we will be reading today again is called The Snow Shrine.
And before you give us the tagline, Mariana, I just wanted to add, we do want to give you a content warning for this piece. This story is about World War II, and there is some explicit violence in it. So if that is something that you are not comfortable with, this is your heads up.
Yes. So the story takes place in the winter of 1937. A young girl and her parents seek safety in the prelude to one of the greatest tragedies of World War II. Enjoy!
The Snow Shrine by George Cooksey. The cold December pierced Mai's wool kite-bow, snapping her from her daydream. She shivered, pulling the light shawl she wore tighter around her shoulders. A litany of sounds, smells, and bodies assaulted Mai from all directions. She longed to be home in her family's estate, back where things were quiet, with her nice clothes and toys and servants. But Mama said that those days were behind them. Less than a week ago, the Japanese army had marched on Nanjing. The main government had already fled, but with Mama being pregnant, Baba said they couldn't risk running. He had heard from a man at work that across the river a Westerner set up a safety zone near Nanjing Square. And so they found themselves here, at Pukao train station, waiting for their turn in line to catch the ferry across the Yangtze. At the head of the line, in the center platform of the station, a modest stage had been constructed from an ornate, low table. Behind the makeshift stage, people were being distributed into 2 lines, though Mai couldn't tell what each line meant. She combed her long black hair out of nervous habit. Standing atop the low table was a middle-aged Chinese man serving as an arbiter. He wore long robes and a big jacket similar to those her father wore. At each of his flanks sat an intimidating Japanese soldier, each with a long rifle with a blade affixed to the tip. One of the soldiers had a thick, bushy mustache and a splotchy red face, like his collar was perpetually too tight, depriving him of air. The other soldier had glasses, with a gaunt face and a cruel grin. He looked as though he were watching a comedy picture. Baba must have noticed Mai's frantic combing, as he turned around and put a gentle hand over hers. It felt warm, despite the winter air. "My dear, remember, Jifeng Jinkao." Baba gave her a soft smile. "What is it short for?" It was one of Baba's favorite sayings. Mai responded with rolled eyes. "It means that it takes a tempest to show us the strength of a blade of grass." "That's right. And what does that mean?" that only in hard times do we learn our own strength. And this is a tempest. I know, Baba. Good girl. I know you can be brave. Baba kissed Mai's forehead before pulling in both Mai and Mama for an embrace. Finally, their turn came, and Father stepped up to the stage, expression stoic. He bowed thrice, first to the arbiter, and then to each of the foreign soldiers in turn. I'd like to apply for a certificate of good citizenship for myself, my pregnant wife, and our daughter. Name? Zia Hui Fen, Your Honor. Baba paused. Say, haven't we met before? The arbiter's eyes grew wide, shifting uncomfortably. Sir, I have no idea what you mean. Now, occupation? A simple bureaucrat. I work for the New Republic's Ministry of Finance. Again, her father pushed, leaning forward and almost whispering. Yes, I do remember you. Your name, Hai Yong Ki, right? What are you doing working for the Japanese devils? Mai gasped to hear her father use such hateful language, but the man apparently named Yong Ki seemed even more shocked. The soldier Mai dubbed Mustache barked an angry question towards the arbiter, but Yong Ki waved him back, hiding his nervousness with an overly imperious air. Do not lie. If you are a soldier, just admit it. The Imperial Army will be very lenient, give you money to go home, even a job. But if you are found out, it will not be pleasant. I ask you again, occupation. A soldier? What are you talking about? Yong Ki, you know me. Can't you see that? Yong Ki cut him off, fear in his eyes, commanding, Show us your palms. Baba protested. This is ridiculous. I work a desk job. I clearly don't. Mustache grabbed Baba's hand, yanking it forward. Baba yelped in pain. Glasses and Mustache both inspected his right hand, with special attention to the thumb and index finger. Yong Ki translated. They say your hands are calloused, like those of a rifleman. His eyes waned. I am sorry, truly. No, this is a blatant lie. I haven't held a rifle in over 10 years, before my daughter was born. But Baba's protests fell to deaf ears. He moved to grab at the arbiter, but before he could do so, Mustache connected the butt of his rifle with Baba's face. Mama screamed, quickly pulling Mai behind her kaipo. Baba fell to his knees, nose bleeding. He clutched his dislocated arm as the two Japanese men moved to drag him away. He fought back, digging his heels and shouting, Yi-ran, I love you! Make it to the safety zone! Mai, be strong! Take care of your mother and the baby! Mustache dug the rifle into Baba's stomach, silencing him before dragging him out of sight. Horrified, Mama cried out and stepped forward, but the arbiter held her back. I'm sorry, ma'am. There's nothing we can do. Mama's expression hardened, and she hissed with a vitriol Mai had never heard from her normally tranquil mother. Coward! The arbiter turned away. Mai wished to lash out with 1,000 worse things to say. She wished more to chase after Baba. Mai summoned up her courage, but nothing came. A knot formed in her throat, choking back tears. Ashamed, she buried herself deeper into the recesses of Mama's dress. Her mother spoke up instead, her vitriol replaced by pleading. I beg you, my daughter and I need to reach the safety zone. I am with child and need a hospital. You have already taken my husband from me. Do not take my children, please. Yong Ki looked down towards Mai, seemingly noticing her for the first time. Then his eyes darted towards Mustache and Glasses, who were making their way back across the platform. He spoke quickly. Come back at night. Train carriages of supplies are ferried across the river then, and you can easily hop in one. But it isn't safe now. I can't promise someone won't. He cut off as the two soldiers from before stepped back up, returning to their post. They looked down towards Mai and her mother, looming like two wolves prepared to pounce upon a meal. Glasses appeared particularly hungry, a snarl stretching across his thin face. He said something in a language that Mai did not understand. Yong Ki's eyes widened, and he started speaking rapidly in a foreign tongue. The arbiter seemed to be pleading for something, though for what, Mai wasn't sure. However, Glasses just laughed dismissively. This continued for less than a minute before Mustache, apparently tired of listening to the exchange, held up his hand. The distraction mitigated, Glasses squatted down to Mai's level. He took a few strands of her hair in hand, yanking her forward as if she were a doll. His face was close enough that Mai could smell the warm stench of baijiu liquor on his breath. He grabbed her wrist. At that, Mai jumped back, tripping on her floor-length kaipo and falling to the ground. No! Mama lurched forward, but Mustache viciously jerked her back. Glasses laughed and hauled Mai back to her feet. Her heart raced. She struggled and squirmed, but could not escape the soldier's grip. All attempts at escape exhausted, she screamed. Suddenly, her face stung as Glasses struck her across the cheek. Her face pulsed with icy pain, but Mai continued to scream. She turned in all directions, crying for help, but no one stepped up. A passing woman, who looked about Mama's age, bore a sympathetic expression, but it quickly hardened as she sheltered her own children from view with a dirty shawl. Glasses began to drag Mai away. Just as the horror of what was about to happen sunk in, a fist struck Glasses in the face. Young Ki stood there with a shaking hand. Both Mustache and Glasses turned to the quivering man with fire in their eyes, raising their rifles. He managed to call out one final command. "Run!" Mama grabbed Mai's hand and bolted, abandoning their bags. From behind them, Mai heard the sound of a single rifle shot, and the train station devolved into chaos. They dove into the crowd, weaving between carts, families, and soldiers running all directions. The thin veneer of civility shattered. Violence erupted all around them, like a dam that overflowed to bursting. Something had snapped in the foreign soldiers as they descended upon the unarmed crowd with swords. Mai struggled to keep up with her mother. Suddenly, her ears rang in pain as a loud whistle announcing a soon-to-be passing train pierced the existing cacophony of the crowd, drowning out the cries and violence. They quickly reached the edge of the platform, with no escape route in sight. The whistle called out again. All around them, soldiers were rounding up civilians, beating them into submission. Just 5 meters away, a trio of soldiers turned their heads towards them. Noticing they had been spotted, her mother looked around wildly. There was death all around, and no escape in sight. Then she saw a small body lying still on the train tracks, still intact, and she kneeled down. "Darling Mai, listen closely. You have to crawl along the tracks, but I can't follow you. Be strong for me, okay?" "No, Mama, Baba is already gone. I can't do this alone." "Yes, you can. Shai Fing Jing Kao. You are strong. We'll meet again at the small shrine by the bank of the Yangtze, just down from the tracks." The earth quaked. The train was coming, and fast. Mama kissed Mai before pushing her away. The deafening whistle cried out again, louder than ever before, and Mai jumped onto the tracks. Mai fell to her stomach just in time as the train charged overhead. She closed her eyes and ears tight, the entire earth shaking around her, like an earthquake that never ended. She couldn't hear anything but the rumble of stone, the screeching of metal on metal, and the roar of the engine that matched her own pounding heart. Reluctantly, she opened her eyes to the iron wheels and carriages racing just centimeters above her head. Staying as low to the ground as possible, she crawled forward. Sharp stones kicked up by the train lacerated her cheeks, and the gravel beneath her dug into her skin. Still, she crawled forward. She chanted to the rhythm of the shaking. Ji Fang, Jing Kao. After what seemed an eternity, the train passed. With great effort, Mai stood to her feet. Her muscles felt like jelly from being shook so long, and her arms and face were cross-cut in 100 places. She took in her surroundings. The soldiers, the crowds, and Mama were nowhere to be seen. Concealed by the enormous train, she had managed to crawl out of the station. Though her muscles screamed in protest, Mai quickly continued to run along the tracks towards the Yangtze River. The gravel was too difficult to walk on with her small-heeled shoes, so she tossed them aside. The rough stones tore into her soft feet, but she pushed forward. After a time, she approached the river bank, where beneath the setting sun she came upon yet another horrid sight. At the bank of the river lay piles upon piles of bodies, Chinese citizens. Neither age nor gender seemed to matter. There were so many she couldn't dare count, so many killed by bullet or blade that the river itself bled red. Up the hill, Mai spotted Imperial soldiers dragging more, perhaps all from the riot back at the station. She wondered if Baba might be among them. No. She squeezed her eyes shut. It was too painful to think about now. The soldiers were approaching. With no cover to retreat back up to the train, there was nowhere else to run, and among the corpses of the destitute, Mai's expensive dress and long hair made her stick out like a sore thumb. She swallowed, spoke a silent prayer, and resolved herself. She tore off what remained of her tattered kaipo, standing in the cold in her undergarments. She rapidly found the body of a young peasant boy who looked about her age, removed the blood-soaked robes from his corpse, and threw them on. Next, she hurriedly fished out a sharp, rusty bit of metal from a pile of discarded belongings. She set to work, hacking at her long hair, cutting, ripping, and tearing till she was left with a poorly shaved head with scattered, miserable wisps of miscast hairs. The soldiers were approaching fast. She threw the kaipo and hair scraps into the river and climbed into the pile of bodies, plunging herself into darkness. The stench washed over Mai like a wave of nausea, threatening to make her throw up. It was only by stubborn will and inertia that Mai managed to hold it in, lest she give away her position. She stifled tears, desperately wishing to be able to cry, to be in Mama and Baba's arms, to wake up from this nightmare. From outside her hiding place, she could hear the crunch of the soldiers' boots on gravel. Some of them seemed to be laughing, stabbing at each pile with their bayonets as though they were playing a boys' game. The sounds moved from pile to pile, louder and louder, closer and closer, till finally the sounds were directly above her. A bayonet plunged mere centimeters from her, just barely cutting the tip of her finger. Her finger burned with pain, but Mai bit her tongue, lest she make a sound. The bayonet retreated, but along with it, the body that covered her slipped off the pile, revealing a young soldier who looked directly at her. She held her breath and did her best to play dead. Her heart pounded louder than an entire troop of drummers, and she was sure it would give her away. The soldier's head cocked, but then blessedly, he just gave a disgusted look and moved on. It was another minute before Mai released her breath. Mai didn't dare move for another several hours. Finally, under the full cover of darkness, she slipped out from her hiding place. At some point, snow had begun to fall. Without the sun for warmth, frost had coated the ground, forming a thin layer of frozen crystals and rubies. She ripped a few more pieces of cloth, fashioning makeshift foot wraps and a simple shawl. She found their meeting point concealed by reeds and rime. A small, dilapidated shrine with a single stone Buddha covered in soot spewed from the nearby passing trains. The new Republic of China had promoted Christianity, so the shrine was abandoned. But Baba had kept the old ways and would bring the family here before each time they traveled. Mai knelt down, forcing herself through familiar motions. She said a prayer for her deceased protectors back at the riverbank, wishing them peace in their next life. She said a prayer for the arbiter, Yong Qi, who showed courage despite being a coward. She even said a prayer for Nanjing itself, a city lost to devils. Finally, she said a prayer for Baba and Mama, who she thought she may never see again. When she ran out of prayers to say, she huddled next to the Buddha, letting the snowflakes fall on them both. Out of habit, she reached for a comb she no longer had, to brush hair that was no longer there. Eventually, she heard the muted crunch of footsteps on snow. Mai hid behind the shrine and listened, but they did not sound like a soldier's boots. They were uneven and soft. She peeked out, and as though a singular prayer answered, a singular gift from heaven, before her stood Mama. She had made it as well, but something was wrong. Mama had a blank, wild look in her eyes. Her legs were bowed and covered in bruises. She still wore her kaipo, though it was torn in many places and splattered with a deep red. Gripped in her hand was a large shard of broken glass, her hand dripping blood from holding it so tightly. Mai trepidatiously called out for her. "Mama?" At the sound of Mai's voice, the light in Mama's eyes returned, and the makeshift blade dropped from her hand. They rushed to embrace, holding each other tightly, warm tears silently streaming down their frostbitten cheeks. "What happened, Mama?" "Nothing, darling. Just a tempest." Mai tended to her mother's hand, gently wrapping the wound with a few strips of torn cloth. Then, hand in hand, they silently trekked through the darkness back towards the train station. Just as Yongki had said, train carriages were being loaded on a ferry to cross the Yangtze. Together they snuck into one of the carriages, where they huddled for warmth amongst others who traveled in the same fashion. A boy with a swollen eye, who looked perhaps 2 years her junior, offered Mai a bite of a moldy rice bun, which she heartily accepted. On the other side of the river, Mai continued to hold Mama's hand, traveling by shadow and alley till they finally spotted a tall building marked with the big red cross her father had told her about, the Nanjing Safety Zone. There, a group of kindly, elderly women helped put Mama up in a hospital bed and set to nursing her wounds and checking on her pregnant belly. Mai curled up next to her, wrapped in a rough blanket. She lay there for a time, exhausted but unable to close her eyes. A soft wind blew through the drafty window. Though it was a winter breeze, somehow its chill felt warm and familiar on her cheek. "Good night, Baba," Then, at long last, Mai fell asleep.
That was The Snow Shrine by George Cooksey. Oh boy, that was intense.
Yeah, for sure. George does a great job introducing the family as the story begins. With just a few details, he makes it clear that this family comes from wealth and that they are leaving that behind. As we get the details about her family having an estate, nice clothes, servants. So we immediately get a clear idea of their station in life. And then I love the family proverb that her father tells her: it takes a tempest to show us the strength of a blade of grass. And it feels very natural how he asks her what that means. That only in hard times do we learn our strength. And not only is that adage true and relevant to what we see in the story, but it feels like an authentic moment of a father talking to his daughter, sort of preparing her and us as the readers for the fact that she might be about to face a significant hardship. And in order to get through it and survive, she's going to need strength. And I thought that was very well crafted, because sometimes if you give the reader a saying and then go on to explain it, that can feel a little heavy-handed and even patronizing. But the way that he does it here feels like a very real and genuine exchange between father and daughter. And it does add clarity to the moment.
Exactly. And I think this is one of the most heart-wrenching stories we have. I remember the first time I read it, I just sat there speechless for some minutes. I was stunned by the violence of it all, the historical event he was depicting, and how tragically common these sorts of things tend to happen during occupations and armed conflicts. It is truly appalling to see the depths of evil and atrocious acts that humans can sometimes commit.
Yeah, I completely agree. The violence in this story is very intense. The Nanjing Massacre is an event in World War II that I had never heard about prior to reading this story. So, of course, I wanted to look it up and learn more about it. And it's incredible how there are so many things in history that you hear about, and then you question, why have I never heard this before? The scale of it is so difficult to comprehend. It's just horrible. I really struggle to understand how human beings are capable of such atrocities. But it does seem to be a fundamental aspect of our nature. As you said, there are so many examples throughout history. It's disturbing and heartbreaking. You just wonder why. Why are people horrible to each other? Just why?
Yeah, it's hard to comprehend. Regarding this story specifically, once the action starts, the tension and the suspense does not let up, and I thought that George did a wonderful job at conveying the horror and fear that all these citizens are experiencing. However, I also love how, despite the grim subject matter, there is still an unrelenting hope that is palpable in the main character. I love the moment when John Key punches a soldier in the face to allow May to get away. It is such a beautiful moment of courage and sacrifice. He could just no longer stand by and watch what was happening. And then we hear the rifle shot when they are running away, and we understand the cost of his actions, of standing up to them. I also love May's resilience all throughout, and how despite all the horror she witnesses in such a short span of time, she doesn't give up.
Yeah, and one of my favorite aspects of the piece is how throughout the story they repeat the Chinese saying, it takes a tempest to show us the strength of a blade of grass. But the most powerful moment, I thought, was when Mai and her mother reunite by the shrine, and we see the condition that her mother is in, and Mai asks her what happened, and she simply replies with, a tempest. That is just such a powerful moment that really shows this woman's incredible strength after the brutality that she has faced, shielding her daughter from the specifics of it, and letting her know that it is something that she won't allow to break her. I just felt so much for this woman and really admired that. And you just think, this is just two characters, one family's experience of this horrific event, and thousands upon thousands of people were victims of similar things just at this one time and place. It's sickening. I feel like it's important to remember, which is why I think stories like this are very important. And reading this was just incredibly impactful experience for me. It is one that really stuck with me ever since I first read it.
Me too. It's very, very powerful. All right, well, the prompts that George chose were a pregnant woman for the character, a train station for the setting, and the one thing that had to be at least mentioned in the story was an earthquake. And remember, if you enjoyed this piece, you can follow George and his writing group on their new blog, suggestionmode.com. So go check that out. We will be back in 2 weeks for our next episode.
Yep. We would like to say we'll try to give you something a little more lighthearted and upbeat, but we want to share the winning story from our current challenge, and we don't know what that is yet. So we are looking forward to that. And look out for that announcement of the winning stories on the 18th. We'll send that out to all the participants, and we'll also post the list on our website, writersplaygroundllc.com, and then we'll start sending out all the feedback right after that. And remember, we send those out individually, so it'll take us a few days to get through all of them. But again, thank you so much, everybody, for your patience, and we'll get back to work right now. Have a great one, and keep writing.
See ya!